Don't be afraid to step out and take some risks. Figure out what's important to you and follow that dream. We're really all about dreaming big here. When people say that, it's not just a tagline. This is the place where people dare to do what other people are afraid to do. And so you have to embrace that here as an employee, and you would not believe the amazing things that people have accomplished.
NASA Glenn Research Center at Lewis Field in Cleveland, Ohio. This research facility at NASA Glenn celebrates its 75th anniversary in 2016. Today, NASA's Office of Education strives to expand science, technology, engineering, and mathematics career opportunities for underrepresented and underserved groups. We invited 3 inspiring civil servants at NASA Glenn to tell us their stories. Deanna Santiago is a research materials engineer at NASA Glenn.
When I went to college, I wanted to be a pharmacist, so I started a pre-pharmacist. And then I was taking chemistry classes, and I love it. But while I was in high school, I hated chemistry, so I didn't want to go to chemistry because of that. But then on college, all the chemistry classes, I loved them, so I changed degrees to go to chemistry, to finish on chemistry. So I pursued that, and then at some point I did some research on electrochemistry. I loved it, but the challenge was that area is very male populated. If you are doing graduate school, you have to go to conferences, and in conferences there were all males and just few women, and it was very shocking and very challenging. I just went to the conferences and I stood up and I was like, I'm here and I'm like you.
Rickey Shyne is the Director of Research and Engineering at NASA Glenn.
I made a decision to go into mechanical engineering. Left Dayton, Ohio, and went to Tennessee State University in Nashville, Tennessee, which is where I ended up attaining my Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. So the challenges really for me were that, especially during the time I was matriculating, is I really didn't have a strong understanding of mathematics. And so let me define what I mean by that. Is I could do it, but I always found it to be difficult for me to do. One of the reasons why, and I figured this out years later, that it was difficult for me to do, is because nobody ever really explained to me the basis of mathematics and why mathematics is important. And so my junior year, second semester junior year in undergrad, the light bulb finally went off. And I was finally able to connect the dots. Is the reason you do science is to describe the phenomena you see in physical terms. The reason you do mathematics is to define the phenomena that you saw from science. And if somebody had explained that to me, it would have changed the way that I would have learned. When I got started at NASA Glenn Research Center is a very interesting story. So again, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, which is 200 miles southwest of Cleveland. And I never knew there was a NASA center in Ohio growing up. And the way I found out there was a NASA center in Ohio was, again, I'm at Tennessee State University, and I'm talking to one of my friends from Alabama, actually. And I said, well, what are you doing this summer? He said, well, I'm going to work for NASA. And so, because he was from Alabama, I assumed he was going to Marshall Space Flight Center. So he was from Birmingham. So I said, oh, okay, so you're going to Marshall. He said, no, I'm going to Cleveland. I said, Cleveland? You're going to Cleveland? He said, yes. So there's a NASA center in Cleveland? He said, yes. So at the time, I was already lined up, and I was going to go back home to Dayton, and I was working with General Motors. And so I had an opportunity to apply for a fellowship program the next year, going into my senior year. And my name got put into circulation within this fellowship program, and NASA contacted me and said, would you like to come and work with us for the summer? And so I kind of went back and thought about it and had some discussions with several of my professors, and my one major advisor mentioned to me, you really have the capability and the capacity to do significant engineering work. And he said, I know you've been working with General Motors, he said, which is good. But if you want to do work that's going to challenge you and challenge what you've learned as far as your engineering education, you should go to NASA. So I made the decision and I came to NASA as a summer intern. There are infinitely more opportunities now for young people from underserved communities to get access to programs to help them, put them on a pathway to success than there were when I was growing up. It's infinitely more. So I would encourage them to seek those opportunities out and take advantage of them whenever possible. Because in many ways, those are the things that you can do as an individual or as a parent trying to help your young person navigate their way through a STEM, the pursuit of a STEM career that sets them up for future success.
Robyn Gordon is Director of Center Operations at NASA Glenn.
I started out as a human resource professional in banking. And from there I moved to the public sector and started working at the City of Cleveland. Then I worked for the county library system, and then eventually I came to NASA as a human resources director. So I had a very circuitous route to get to a large federal agency. I have a kind of social justice bent in my background, and I truly believe that employment is the way for people to have access to health care, to education, to a better life. And so I've always been interested in ensuring that people who look like me, people who are different from me, that all people have access to employment. That's been very important to me. I think so many times people listen to what other people tell them. And you should take advice in, but you have to figure out how that advice applies to you. Because if I had listened to everything that everybody told me, I wouldn't be sitting here today. I mean, when I first came to NASA, I didn't grow up here. I didn't start here as a co-op. I don't have a technical background. I have a business background. So if I listened to people who on my first day said, yeah, we don't know how you got here, but this will probably be the only job you have, I would not have been the diversity director for this organization, and I also would not be sitting in this seat as a director of operations. So I think you have to take advice and use the parts that you can use, the parts that you don't think you can use, discard them.
NASA Glenn has 6 core competencies, which have been built on decades of experience by thousands of scientists and engineers. In these 6 core competencies, NASA Glenn pushes beyond the cutting edge to develop revolutionary technologies. In the core competency of air-breathing propulsion, we develop new advanced systems for aerospace vehicles with reduced energy consumption, greater use of alternative energy sources, reduced noise and emissions, improved safety, greater speed, and reduced costs. In communications technology and development, we increase data transfer by orders of magnitude, and we develop communication systems that provide continuous, secure, high data rate communications. In the core competency of in-space propulsion and cryogenic fluids management, we develop advanced spacecraft propulsion systems and cryogenic fluid flight systems. In power energy storage and conversion, we develop solar cells, fuel cells, radioisotope power systems, fission power systems, batteries, and flywheels. In the core competency of materials for extreme environments, we develop advanced materials and mechanisms to enable high-performance, long-life aerospace systems subjected to the extreme environments encountered in an aeronautic and astronautic exploration. In the physical sciences and biomedical technologies, we develop advanced physical and biomedical systems to enable sustainable exploration of space with enhanced safety, extended mission durations, and increased resistance to the damaging effects of space. No matter what your background, you can pursue a future at NASA and contribute your own unique perspective and abilities to explore, research, and build the world of tomorrow.